Hello, everyone. This is Derek Badala with Syntax, and we have the illustrious Jeff Petersen with us, our man of the hour, man of the day, man of your hour if you need help. Jeff, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Hello.
Doing
Hi,
good.
everybody. Thank you.
So this is a live stream, Ask RME. For those of you who don't know the relationship between Syntax and RME, it's a special one. We are the same company. Syntax Inc. is the worldwide distributor and marketing and sales division of RME. So that is the relationship between the two companies. And for those of you that reside in North and South America, all of your support comes right out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where Jeff happens to reside. So if you have questions, if you are a customer of RME or you're considering RME, this is a great place to send a question in on the chat. We are streaming on several platforms. So whatever platform you're watching us on right now, feel free to chat your question and we will try to answer it. So
Um,
Jeff, how's it going? What are some of the latest questions you're getting these days?
oh man, you have no idea. It's so busy. Um, really, still a lot of. Actually, today was an ADI2 DAC DSD day. I was getting a lot of
Okay.
calls today with people using the ADI2 DAC with their streamer. So normally, the most people we talk to are using it directly with a computer through USB or connecting to an iPad. But there are people who are taking it to the next level and using a dedicated streamer hardware for the connection. And, those are sort of built around Linux. So there can be some challenges with compatibility. But yeah, it's really cool. DSD is really something that's set the download world on fire again. Um, we've been dealing with high res audio for a long, long time, but DSD has kind of goosed it again into having relevance in the modern world. Where 96K FLAC, okay, whatever, but people really get excited for the capabilities with DSD audio files for high res. So,
Nice.
yeah, how about you? What's your world
um,
like today?
well, you could tell we've had long days where
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little tired today. For me, it's been a lot of questions about the baby face.
Mm-hmm.
People kind of looking at the baby face have questions about using it in certain situations. I was talking to Adrian Lehrman today over in our Syntax office overseas, Syntax PR. For those of you who don't know Adrian, he does a lot of our videos he has that sort of English accent. And we were talking about the iPad Pro bus powering the baby face, because the previous iPads didn't do that. So I still get questions about using the baby face with an iPad,
Mm-hmm.
and using the baby face Pro for home streaming, zooming, OBSing, live streaming, all kinds of different
Oh yeah.
home stuff because we're all quarantined or locked down in some way. So, a lot of questions come up about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, speaking for myself personally, I was working with River Ridge High School over the weekend, last weekend.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, because you got a call from me.
I got a few calls.
So yeah, this was a total mix remote. All right. So interesting. While we're waiting for folks to ask questions. And by the way, please, if you have a question, no matter how silly you think it is, please work up the courage and ask it. This is all for you, basically. Just type it and we'll definitely answer it online here. So essentially what we were doing, this was a percussion ensemble, 5 marimbas, 2 keyboards, several percussion instruments, and this group goes around the state of Florida and competes against other schools. And the trick is you only have a certain amount of time to roll out your equipment in a
Mm-hmm.
gymnasium, and there's a PA system. And we did it last year with just basic PA equipment. And this year I decided, maybe I can do this with a 12 mic and a UFX Plus and use Total Mix Remote to be a mixer. Now, it was never RME's intent to make RME's Total Mix a live mixer, but I mean, honestly, if you're using a Fireface UFX Plus, it's got EQ, it's got compression, it's got reverb, and I
Yeah.
used all of that. And with Total Mix Remote, all of the inputs going into my Fireface UFX Plus are now able to be mixed to an output. And what pushed this over the edge for me to use the RME was they were using MainStage from Apple, or app. It works on Mac. I don't know if it's an Apple product or
It
not, but
is.
MainStage, yeah. So
Mhm.
they were using that to pull up sounds. So the student who was playing one of the synthesizers could step through all the different sounds that he needs to access during the show, and he needed an audio interface regardless to play the sound. So I was like, well, let's just use a Fireface. And so it was quite a complex setup. I'll take a
Yeah.
picture of it this weekend, and maybe I can share it with. We're going to do this next week. I'll share it. But long and short of it, here was my problem. How, number one, I had to install everything, and you talked about the security issues with
Hmm.
Catalina and with Big Sur. This particular Mac was running Catalina, so I had to overcome all of that in the preference security, and then, of
Hmm.
course, then step two was how am I going to roll out this computer cart, plug it in, have it all work, and get Total Mix and Total Mix Remote up in 90 seconds. Because if it doesn't come up, I'm kind of screwed.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get the Mac network. Like, for those of you that don't know, like on a Mac, I can't speak for Windows, but on a Mac, you can create your own little Wi Fi hub using your Mac's Wi Fi. And I was going to connect to it, and it just wasn't working with my iPad. So I used my cell phone, my iPhone, as a hotspot, and left it on the cart. Meanwhile, I walked up into the stands with an iPad and controlled the Fireface that way, and it worked flawlessly.
Oh, that's
Uh,
amazing.
I'm not convinced I'm going to do it that way the next 8 performances, because I was
So,
a little freaked out that my phone might ring or somebody might call
yeah.
me. So I was putting it in, do not disturb,
You
and it
summoned
worked.
it.
So
Well, so the reason for the using the iPad though is that so you could get to a place to make better choices about the
yeah, so
acoustics.
I left the UFX Total. For those of you who don't know, Total Mix will retain its settings. So I got a decent mix in the parking lot because we were set up out in the parking lot and rehearse, and that was the mix if
Hmm.
all hell broke loose, and I was fine with that. But yeah, the reason for Total Mix Remote is like if the keyboard sound is a little too loud or this marimba is too loud, I can just adjust it on my iPad. It worked great. So
Hmm.
not sure if that's what the Army folks had in mind with Total
Hey,
Mix Remote, but
there's people using these things 1,000 different ways that nobody ever intended. I
yeah.
have a longtime client who I actually haven't heard from in a while, but things must be working. They use a UFX on stage for they use MIDI inputs. They're triggering virtual instruments on a computer, a laptop, and playing out through the Fireface. They're using the mic inputs and line inputs for instruments and mics. They're running PA and also running their own headphone mixes off of the UFX, and at the same time recording with Durek. So they record every show they do.
I was
That's pretty
considering the
crazy.
Durac thing. I just didn't have a thumb drive handy. Otherwise, I would have
Hmm.
done it. Um, it's funny because I was originally going to do that with the baby face because it's bus powered. So I figure worst case scenario, we got the laptop powered up on its battery, the baby face or Matty Face Pro up with and the other thing I didn't tell you is I'm using an Octamic XTC
Right.
so I can control the gain through Total Mix. And I was like, man, maybe I should use a Matty Face Pro. I mean, the Octamic needs to be plugged in, but at least I would have the network up and running as we're all on battery power.
Hmm.
But I just went with the Fireface because it's got more inputs and more mic pre's, and I wanted compression, which the Baby Face and the Matty Face Pro didn't give me. So I figured, you know, yeah, it's a great little live mixer setup. A Fireface
Yeah.
UFX Plus with an Octamic XTC. You got
I
what,
mean, that's
12 mic inputs and a bunch of line ins and outs and Total Mix Remote, and it's like a little mixer.
it's really crazy. Oh,
Yeah.
actually, we have a some chat
Well, we
here.
got questions. We
Yeah.
can.
So this is from Overlooked Entertainment. How you doing? Good to see you again. So he's asking about his NVIDIA card. When I'm using the ASIO Fireface in FL Studio, I can't figure out how to get it to pick up. Okay, so this sounds like we're looking for loopback. Um, you're mentioning the ASIO Fireface doesn't go into Windows Audio, so how do you get that recording? So yeah, overlooked. So what you'd need to do is enable WDM channels on your Fireface settings. If you pull up, in fact, maybe I can show it to you right here.
Yeah, you can share screen if you want.
Let me just pull that panel up.
And then we got some questions on the Facebook side, so I'll ask those when we get to it. So those that are
So on
typing,
your
just be patient.
Face settings, you'll need to set up this WDM. That's what Windows is going to see. So yeah, you're right. The portion of ASIO is not doesn't have anything to do with Windows Audio. ASIO is just for your recording softwares, or more like high-end playback software. If you wanted to capture that mix, you'll need to create WDM channels. So these are not all enabled by default because they can. The more channels you can have slowdowns with other audio apps. So we just want you to enable what you need. So you just click on configure. You can choose your WDM devices, how many you want to show. You can even choose if you want to show one as the speaker. So like my analog 1 and 2 will be my speaker here. So in Total Mix, you your mix that you want to capture into the main on 1 and 2, or if you're able to use other channels, 8 for 5 and 6 are just right here. I click on this button and turn on loop back, and that allows us to send this signal and this mix back as an input to your other software. So that will then see it on input 1 and 2. So what I have here currently is a mix of my mic. Actually, it's not a mix. It's just my mic with some signal processing DSP going on, routed to main, and loop back, and then that gets presented as input 1 and 2 into Zoom, and then I hear back from the other one. So we have quite a few tutorial videos showing this thing on our YouTube channel. So please take a look there. And if you don't get anywhere, call us. We're always happy to help and talk to
Hey
you.
Jeff, I got another question.
Yep.
Yeah. This is from Christopher David Williams on our Facebook page, one of our Facebook pages. Any way to add the ability download direct recordings to computer through Total Mix? I don't think you can do it through Total Mix, but you can do it by just popping the card in the thumb drive into your computer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so there's kind of two different concepts. If you leave the drive plugged in on the front, you can play those files right through the Fireface by using the play buttons on the Total Mix. So when you have Total Mix open, I'm going to share my screen again. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay. So on Total Mix, this is a UFX2, so it has the direct built in. Down here at the bottom, you see this last module, DuRecorder. At the bottom, there's a button, Record View. If I turn on Record View, I want you to look. You see all these mute and solo buttons on all my channels. When I turn on Record View, those now become play and record channels. So I don't have a stick plugged in now, but if I did, I could arm that and record this mic as I'm talking right into the system. I'll just hit record here, and when I'm done, I stop it. Then I can play back the file. Simply click on the play button, and I can choose channel 1, 2, or whatever I want it to be for that channel to play back. So I can play back and monitor what I've just recorded. But Derek is right that the primary use here is to take that stick, plug it into your Mac or PC, and then unpack those files into your multi-track.
And those files show up just as WAV files, don't they? You don't have to.
Yeah, it's a broadcast wave, so it's what they called interleaved, which means it's one file that can have one channel up to 100 channels. So it depends how many channels you're arming, how many channels you get recorded. But once you have that interleave file, you can just dump that right into a lot of DAWs. They'll import them directly. But if not, we have a tool called Wave Processor that you can download from RME, and that will let you process those files, um, combine them back together, split them into mono or stereo tracks, and then you can put them in any editor that you like.
Nice. I think there were some other questions on the YouTube side. Oh,
Yeah,
quite a
YouTube's
few.
going. Um, +4 and -10 settings for line, not necessarily for impedance. This is from Sean Charles.
Yep.
I'm connecting synths. Could you elaborate on this? Okay, so you're right. +4 and -10 really have no bearing on impedance. The Fireface has three settings. You have -10 dBV, which is compatibility with your standard consumer audio stuff like a CD player or a tape deck. +4 is your pro audio level that most stuff will work at. Powered monitors are typically happier at a +4 setting. If you have hardware effects, those may work at +4. And then you have another one called high gain or +19 dBu. That's considered a studio level. And so your hotter mic preamps will work in that sort of range. And then there's even a further one called +24. And you won't see that too much outside of broadcast. Broadcasters use +24 in their workflow. But really, when it comes to getting the right setting, you kind of just have to do it by eye. If you're coming in too hot on a +4 setting, try a -10. You just want to get it so you're in a good range for capture without clipping or being so low that you have high noise floor.
Follow-up question from Overlooked, and then we have Ghost JV Productions. So the follow-up question, I'm not sure, Jeff, if you may have addressed this because I was reading questions when you were talking earlier. He says he's on a Babyface Pro FS and doesn't see the option. He does see WDM devices listed as 6, but no configure.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, the Babyface, because it's such a small channel count, it doesn't have that configure panel. We don't see really problems with 6 channels. So that's going to be is WDM 1 and 2 is your input 1 and 2, 3, 4 is 3 and 4, and then starting at 5, that is your ADAT channels. So that might be one thing you're overlooking. Make sure you're getting the right channels into there. But whichever one you have the loop back on is what you need to enable in the app that you're recording. So if you're doing loop back on output 1, 2, then you're going to capture on input 1, 2. Make sense?
And then we have a new question with some follow-ups. I own this is Ghost JV Productions. I own the UFX Plus, and I love it for Ableton and DaVinci Resolve, but I have trouble with it in DaVinci Resolve on my Windows PC. I get nothing but trouble when playing back my footage, as the audio going through the interface does nothing but give me constant clicks and dropouts. I've tried everything, and the only thing that works is running the audio through my TV via ADAT.
Hey, Ghost, is that via ADAT from the Fireface? If you could answer in chat, that would help. Boy, that's odd because, that seems really more like an app issue. Ableton is working well, then the Fireface is working well. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I don't know much about DaVinci Resolve. I guess that's a video editing app or some sort of effects. But with video apps, they don't necessarily have strong support for audio. You're working with Windows. I think you're probably going to be using WDM in that scenario. Okay, he says yes. So if you're using the light pipe out and that's working, that's all going through the same path as the converters would be on the Fireface. So it's kind of, that really is a stumper to me.
Wouldn't the app have clock settings that need to be set, and wouldn't you want to master clock that differently?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. That's a good thought. It may be a mismatch. Video is typically running at 48K sample rate, and if you have everything,
if the audio interface is set at 44.1, wouldn't he have a problem?
Yeah.
Would he set the Fireface to a different clock setting than other than internal?
No, but you set it to internal. If you have an ASIO app open, that is going to force the Fireface to follow the clock. So that may be an issue. If you have a clock mismatch because you have Ableton open at 44.1 and DaVinci at 48K, That will certainly cause some issues with the audio having to be resampled in Windows, and that never works out well.
Yeah, I'll probably have to look at that
I have to
a
dig
little
into that one a
carefully.
little more deeply.
In
Yeah.
general, though, I mean, if you're getting clicks and pops, that's almost always a clock problem, and it's easy to.
Or a USB problem, I would say, but yeah.
Well,
We're,
I always start
we're
with the clock. Make sure
hmm
my DAW is set right. My Fireface USB. For those of you who use RME gear, you always get a Fireface or FireWire or Thunderbolt settings in the task tray, and you got to open
hmm
that up and look at that and sample rate. Those are the three things. And if you're using multiple applications at the same time, you want to make sure you're operating them all in the same sample rate.
Yep. Just like
So,
any digital system, you can only have one clock and everything has to agree.
all right, here we go. So, yeah, unfortunately, DaVinci is using WDM instead of ASIO. I've checked the video app and it's at 48, and the interface is always at 48. I've set the master clock to internal and have tried AES. Sounds like
Okay.
he's done all the right things.
Yeah. Yeah. You're doing everything right.
Boy, not sure on that. Um, and he said it's working right with ADAT.
Yeah. And it works fine in Ableton without DaVinci
I've tried
involved.
everything, and the only thing that works is running the audio through my TV via ADAT.
Hmm.
So the TV is the bridge between the software and the audio
Well,
interface.
believe he clarified it's going from the Fireface ADAT out to the TV, so that's passing through everything the same way as the
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure
headphone
on that.
jacks or anything else would. Hmm. Okay, well,
Let's see if we got any other questions.
Ghost, email me again next week and we can dig into that some more.
Clock problem thing. Thank you for the help, gentlemen. One more question, if I may. Can I run my monitors via plus 24 instead of plus 4? Will it hurt
You
anything?
can, you certainly can. If it's a UFX, the XLR outs are capable of going up to plus 24 dBu. What that does is ends up putting a much higher voltage on the cable. So, it's going to make everything louder at your monitors. So, what I end up having to do mostly is turn down the level on my output so I don't have to ride the fader as much. So, let's say we set our Fireface at minus 10 and set our speaker sensitivity to plus 19. Now I have bigger mismatch, but that means I can run my Fireface closer to full volume without the speakers being way too loud. What you're talking about is actually the reverse of that, which is putting out a much hotter voltage on the RME, and that's going to drive your speakers even louder.
All right. Well, I think we've answered all the questions so far. We got about 7 minutes left on today's session. Just know that we do this every week. I think we're sticking to every Wednesday, but that could change due to certain things that are unforeseen. I think next week we might be doing it a different day or different time, but definitely
Yeah.
follow us. If you're not following the Syntax USA RME page, definitely want to click that and ring the bell, and then you'll get notified.
Yeah,
And
our YouTube Syntax Inc. We're putting up a lot of videos. We're putting together playlists from the RME channel and other sources. So that's going to kind of collect up everything that we think is interesting to our customers. And I hope you'll subscribe and you'll find us going live there whenever we're going to be able to do one of these little tech chats. We're going to have more events coming up in the future. So, with travel being so limited at the moment, this is kind of what we're trying to do instead of trade shows. So, please join us and consider it like your AES show.
yeah. And if you are on the syntax.com website at the very tippy top, in fact, you know what? Let me just show you since we have a minute. You should all be able to see. I got a lot of things open, but there's the Syntax webpage. There is a Rising Stars vocal challenge and guitar challenge. So if you're interested in participating in that, go to syntax.com. It's right on the homepage. Hit learn more. I'm not going to get into that here. But at the very top, you're going to see this webinar page. And you can click on that, and we do classes on all kinds of topics that you might want to learn about. You can also send us an email, and we do web one-on-one overviews and things like that. So you can contact us right here on the Syntax page and let us know that you're interested, and we'll get you what you need to set up a one-on-one. And so we're happy to do that. And any other questions? If you have any questions, we got a few minutes left here. I'm not sure I see any new questions, Jeff. Do you?
Let me see. So I got a Ryan McGibbon. I have several outboard audio devices going into a UFX Plus. No problem receiving audio in multiple DAWs. However, I'm not able to get a signal into DAWs from hardware input 1, 2. I can see hardware input 1, 2 signal in Total Mix, and I can hear the signal via various monitoring devices, but cannot get it into my DAW. So I think what you did is you turned on loopback on your analog out 1, 2 or main out. That will overwrite the hardware inputs with that output, and if nothing's going on there, you'll just get nothing at the input. So share my screen real quick again here and show you what I'm talking about. You want to go into Total Mix and check this right here. So I have my analog 1 and 2 assigned as main, so it's going to be over here on the right hand side, and I can see with this wrench that there's something going on because that's lit up orange, and that tells me that my loopback is active. So you're going to want to click that so it's not orange. Now
Yeah, and I would just add to that, if you can't find the 1, 2, you can show Jeff, show them the views.
Yeah. Over here on the right hand side, there's some extra settings. There's a button here called names, and that's going to show us the real names of the channel. So that's where my AN12 is at. It's under this main. But I can put custom names into any of these channels and call them whatever I want. You know, phones 3. And so now that custom name is shown unless I turn on that names channel. But what I was going to mention is my 1 and 2 is assigned over here. Yours may not be. You may have it over on the far left. It'll say AN1/2 at the top. Just double check that you haven't turned on loopback because that will block the normal input.
Yeah, he said, "Yep, thank you." I think you answered it. Terminal word clock settings, and we're back to the other one here. Appreciate you guys. Terminal word clock settings and TMS setting and SYST Fireface settings panel. When would or should I use these settings?
So word clock, there's a switch for terminating the word clock. So that's putting a 75 ohm load on the input of the word clock, which prevents reflections from coming back down the line, which causes jitter. So you would use that whenever you're plugging in a word clock cable to the Fireface and not using a T connector to chain something else in series. TMS is a different thing. That's called shorthand for track marker support. That really only has to do with DAT tapes. If you have an old DAT machine and you're dumping it into your DAW for archival or editing, you can use that track marker support. That will look for those markers on the SPDIF input and apply them right into your Wavelab or whatever you're using there. Oh, Ryan says, yeah, he'd use loopback to use Zoom. So Ryan, what you want to do then is you want to have a preset for Zoom that has loopback active, and then another preset for default, and then you can just switch between them with the click of a button, so you don't get stuck in that loopback mode.
Is there a simple way to expand the inputs outs on the Babyface Pro FS? As in an RME breakout cable kind of thing, or is it all ADAT SPDIF hardware at this point?
Yeah, it's ADAT or SPDIF. There's no extra analog channels built in, so that's your expansion. You can do 2-channel SPDIF for input and output, or one or the other, or ADAT mode, which is 8 channels. So it just depends what you want to do. Any sort of standalone A to D, D to A converter, or one direction AD or DA would be fine. You know, there's stuff for every budget. You can buy an 8-channel AD/DA for $200. You can buy a 2-channel DA for thousands. So it just depends what you really need and how many channels you need and what the purpose is. But if you want to give us a call, I'm happy to discuss and help you figure out what's going to meet your needs.
Well, I think we're about out of time this week, so we want to thank everybody. We will be here again. If you have any questions, I encourage you to go to the syntax.com website, and at the very tippy top on the left, there's a contact link, and those go to Jeff and I. And depending on the question, we'll give you the appropriate reply. So, Jeff, thanks a lot for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
And I
Derek.
hope everyone
Thanks,
has a
everybody, for
great week.
joining.
All right. Take
Appreciate
care,
it.
everyone.